When talking about Estonians in motorsport, there probably aren't many drivers that spring to mind. Estonians are keen rally supporters. Probably one of the most successful Estonian drivers in the world is currently Ott Tänak. But right now, we are talking in more of the F1's perspective. Yes, there have been Estonians who have competed in a single-seater series and almost had one foot in the door to F1. Like Marko Asmer, who tested for Williams in 2003, Kevin Korjus, who served as Lotus F1's testing and reserve driver at the 2012 Italian Grand Prix, Paul Aron, who drove in Formula 3, and other racing drivers including Sten Ventus, Martin Rump, and Tõnis Kasemets. Probably the closest driver to F1 was Jüri Vips, who was in the Red Bull Junior Academy and drove in a practice session for Red Bull, but got sacked and is currently driving part-time in IndyCar, which is still in no means a small feat. Now, another Estonian has risen from the ranks. Could he be the first Estonian to actually get into F1? Does he have the skill? Is it possible? Is he worth it? Who is Paul Aron?
He was born in Tallinn, Estonia, as is yours truly. He started karting at the age of 8 and took part in a lot of karting series. He soon was racing all over Europe, but mostly in Italy, so I guess not entire Europe. For example, some of his best achievements were in WSK Supermaster Series, where he placed third, 23rd South Garda Winter Cup, junior class, again, he was first. He won the WSK Champions Cup. His best achievement, though, came in 2018 when he won the CIK FIA Karting European Championship in junior class. So what does a European karting champion do next, you might wonder? He graduates to F4, of course. In 2019, he competed in both the German and Italian F4 with Prema. The field that year in the German F4 was stacked with the likes of Theo Pourchaire, Dennis Hauger, soon to become Formula 2 and Formula 3 champions respectively, Arthur Leclerc, and Roman Stanek. The German F4 season was a relatively quiet season for Aron, with 2 wins, one at the Red Bull Ring and one in Zandvoort, and 2 podiums to his name. He finished the season in 7th overall. Albeit a quiet season, Mercedes saw something in Aron, and in that season, Paul Aron joined the Mercedes AMG F1 Junior program. And whatever Mercedes saw in him, his spot in the junior program was justified. As I mentioned before, that same year he also competed in Italian F4, where he proved his worth by scoring 2 wins and 6 podiums and was consistently in the points. Most of the time. In that series, Paul was also up against Dennis Hauger, who won the championship maybe too easily, and Roman Stanek, who he did beat in the standings, but that was because he was absent from a race weekend. Aron finished 3rd overall in that year's Italian F4 and was also the Rookie of the Year. For most of us, 2020 was the year of Great Depression 2.0, or great relief and happiness, depending on your perspective, in the form of the COVID-19 pandemic. But that didn't stop racing drivers from, racing. Duh. In 2020, Paul Aron took part of the Formula Renault Euro Cup Series, where he didn't really achieve a whole lot. There were glimpses of competitiveness, but those were just that, glimpses. There was misfortune after misfortune, and the consistency that we had seen in the previous series just wasn't there. I do have to say he was also just very unlucky. The series itself was dying a slow death, and it merged with Formula Regional European Championship presented by Alpine. Jeez, that's a long name. Aron got 1 podium place finish at the Nürburgring circuit, but that was mostly it. He finished the season in a lonely 11th overall, Now, since Renault Eurocup merged with Brecca the previous year, he again joined Prema in that year's Formula Regional European Championship. In that year's championship, he had some ups and downs, but was more consistent, even if he got no points in France, the country which literally everyone hates for some reason. He was outside of the points only 6 times that year. Aron managed to get 5 podium finishes and 2 pole positions, which he converted into 2 wins. That was good enough for P3 in the standings, beating the likes of Zane Maloney, Isaac Hadjar, Franco Colapinto, and Gabriel Bortoleto. Aron made quite a few mistakes that shouldn't happen, like driving into another driver, for example. But still, I gotta give it to Aron for making such a comeback compared to previous year. In 2022, he joined that year's Freca grid again, but also took part in the Formula Regional Asian Championship, which literally folded a year after. There's bit of a pattern forming here. Anyways, I'm going to start with the Formula Regional Asian Championship because that didn't go too well. Aron joined Abu Dhabi Racing by Prema for that year's championship. The season was nothing that special. He got 2 pole positions in the 4th round, but couldn't convert them into wins. He ended up with 3 podiums and 3 retirements, which I will say there was nothing he could have done to avoid them, or, well, there probably would have been something that he could have done, but that's racing. Now, results were what they were, but he was also up against some of the best drivers like Arthur Leclerc, Pepe Marti, and Oliver Behrman. He ended that season in 8th overall. What about Freca? Well, let me tell you, that was much better season. He didn't even put a foot wrong, getting 7 pole positions, 6 wins, and 2 podium finishes. And the same thing was noticeable in the results. Consistency. Weird. I have used the word consistency very consistently. Yes, he did finish outside of the points 6 times. A tire gamble at the start of the season, 2 racing incidents in Austria, mistakes in Monaco qualifying, which meant that he exceeded the 110% qualifying lap time and didn't qualify for the races. And even though he won race 1 in Mugello, he just didn't have the pace to repeat it in the last one. He finished the season in 3rd overall. I must say, since I'm talking about consistency, okay, maybe I should stop. I don't know what miracle drugs Dino Beganovic was taking, but the way he scored 8 podiums in a row and 13 in total is just something else. But since I'm a biased Estonian and will always support an Estonian driver, then I'm just gonna gloss over it and move on. You probably know what's coming next, don't you? Not what you had in mind? Well, neither did I. One oddball out of the bunch is the Aurum 1006 kilometer race, where he drove for Circle K Miles Plus Racing in the same year. Not gonna lie, I had no idea this kind of race even existed before looking up info for this video. Apparently, it's a touring car and GT endurance racing event held annually in Lithuania at the Palanga circuit. The circuit itself is more of a street circuit, which is literally on the highway. And interestingly enough, when they need to refuel, they go to a nearby gas station. Imagine that at a Le Mans 24-hour race. There are different classes, and Aron drove in the GT3 class in an Audi R8 LMS alongside Paul August, Oskaras Brazaitis, and his brother Ralph Aron. Also, comment down below if you want me to make a video about it. They finished in P2 overall. After a successful Freca season, it was time to step up to Formula 3, a seriously competitive racing series. he again joined Prema alongside Dino Beganovic and Zach O'Sullivan. Aron was out of the points only 4 times in 18 races. There was a lack of pace in Bahrain, a racing incident in Austria, tire gamble in Silverstone, and a driver error in Monza. Other than those 4 times, he was constantly in the points and got 3 podiums and a win in Austria. Also, one of the highlights has to be that dive bomb.
Marty, but watch for Taylor Barnard, watch for Paul Aron. Paul Aron going down the inside of 3 cars in towards last horse, make that 4-5 cars.
That was awesome. He ended the season in P3 in the standings, which I have to say was a superb drive from him. He even beat the now Alpine Formula 1 driver Franco Colapinto, previous year's FRECA winner Dino Beganovic, and 2025 F3 champion Leonardo Fornaroli. And after a great F3 season, he did step in for Clement Novalak's Trident for the final F2 round at Yas Marina Circuit, where he didn't achieve a lot because, well, it was his first and only race in that series, and even that didn't go too well. But luckily, next year there were going to be next-gen Formula 2 cars, which would even the playing field. During that same race weekend, Aron confirmed that he and the Mercedes-AMG F1 Junior program would be parting ways for the following season. 2024 had rolled around, and it was time for Formula 2 and new regulations. Aron joined High-Tech for that season alongside Amaury Cordillo. Right off the bat, he was consistent, getting a podium every race weekend until the 8th round of the season. In the Silverstone sprint race, the weather conditions were appalling, even comparable to a hurricane. Probably most of us remember what our driving instructor once told us: keep your distance when driving in the rain. But in these circumstances, there was nothing that could have been done to avoid that crash. That was the point where it all went a bit downhill. He only managed to get 1 points-paying position in 3 consecutive race weekends, even though he got 2 pole positions. In Hungary, he was on pole, getting a 6th place in the sprint race, and in the feature race went for a move on Dennis Hauger, got caught in Maloney's rear tire, and spun. The sprint race in Belgium was called off early due to weather, and in the feature race he started on pole but had an engine failure basically on the last lap of the race. Monza sprint ended with a broken front wing, and in the feature race, the same thing that happened previous year in F3 in Monza happened again. But this time he got clipped in the rear on the first lap. The feature race winner that day was Gabriel Bortoleto, who went from last to first in an epic drive. Meanwhile, Aron went from first in the championship standings to 4th. Next round was Baku, where qualifying didn't go well for him. He started P12, if I'm not mistaken, but he did manage to score in both the sprint race and feature race, not to mention the massive incident at the start. But arriving in Qatar was a wake-up call for Aron, as he once again got P1 in the practice session and took his 4th pole position of the season with 0.3 of a second clear from 2nd fastest driver. In F2 terms, that is miles ahead. The sprint race was nothing huge in terms of results, since the grid is reversed for the sprint race, and he got some penalties which dropped him down to P7. Race day. The race got underway with Gabriel Bortoleto immediately getting ahead of Aron and Dino Beganovic. Victor Martins was breathing down on Paul Aron's gearbox, but Aron stayed ahead and was pursuing Bortoleto. On lap 8, Antonelli brought out the safety car, having driven into the gravel trap due to the broken steering arm caused by Richard Verschoor's unsafe release in the pit box. That made Bortoleto's mechanics panic, and Bortoleto himself made a mistake of driving out of the pit lane entry after the safety bollard, which gave him a 5-second penalty. Basically, after that bollard and pit lines, you have to come in. And in simple terms, he done effed up. After the safety car restart, Paul Aron and Bortoleto were fighting hard, but then this happened. Another safety car. Bortoleto got the net lead after the second safety car restart and was cutting through traffic like hot knife through butter. In the midst of all this chaos, Paul Aron was firmly behind Bortoleto with only 1.5 seconds between them. But that 5-second penalty was still on Bortoleto's shoulders. Bortoleto was desperately trying to pull away from Aron and, most of all, his championship rival, Isaac Hadjar. Once the checkered flag had fallen and the dust had settled, Paul Aron had won his first ever F2 race. After 24 races, he was finally an F2 race winner. Even though the win came down to Bortoleto's penalty, which to some may feel less earned, Paul Aron fought hard to keep up with him. And as it is usually said, that's racing. That win pushed him up to P3 in the standings and gave him a glimmer of hope to win the title. One thing I also forgot to mention is that Paul drove briefly in Formula E, filling in for Sebastian Buemi alongside Joel Eriksson, who also was filling in for Robin Frigens. Anyways, Paul Aron started the first Berlin race in 19th and ended up in 13th. The second race he started in 19th and ended up 14th. So yeah, a short stint in Formula E. But let's get back to the championship. When the F2 circus pulled up to Abu Dhabi, Paul Aron was in contention to win the championship. I have to admit there was only a sliver of a chance that he could have won the championship. But in the end, he had to accept third in the standings, which is still no small feat, up against seriously competitive 21 other drivers. On November 30th of that year, Alpine Formula 1 team announced that Paul Aron will take the role of a reserve driver from the 2025 season onwards. For many Estonians, it was a massive news because that meant that Aron was closer than ever to a Formula 1 seat. And this brings us to 2026. 4 free practice sessions with Alpine and Sauber, and loads of testing later, he is still part of Alpine and is still waiting for his shot at the big leagues. To end this video, I'm going to ask a question and, in an orderly fashion, also answer it. So, does he deserve to be an F1? The biased answer would be absolutely. For him to be the first Estonian to make it on into F1 full time would be something that can't be expressed in words. But the skeptic in me would also question it. To be honest, there are so many drivers that want to be on the F1 grid, like Felipe Drugovich, Frederic Vesti, Theo Porcher, Mick Schumacher, Leonardo Fornaroli, Ayumu Iwasa, just to name a few. Some of those drivers already had their chance, but there are others who haven't even gotten to show their worth. He might follow suit with some of the drivers and take a stab at Super Formula and hone his skills there, or just stay in the reserve role in Alpine and hope that he will get his chance, which, to be honest, seems unlikely in the near future. The reason I'm doubting this is because they also have Kush Maini as their second reserve driver, and Gabriele Mini and Alexander Dunn in the pipeline in Formula 2, each of them also looking to occupy a seat in one of the Alpine cars. The time is ticking, and the longer he waits for an opportunity that might not even come, the smaller the chances are of actually getting a seat in Formula 1. And I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I really do hope that he will get the chance. But looking at how the team operates under Flavio Briatore, and that it was probably due to Oliver Oakes that he even got the role in the first place, and who is already long gone from the team, Aron isn't really on solid ground. And it might not even come as a surprise if or when they pull the rug from underneath him. The only hope is that Alpine or some other team see the potential in Aron and offer him a seat. Whatever his next step might be, you can't look past his remarkable career up to the present moment. Having come from so far, starting from karts to winning the European Karting Championship, from F4 all the way to F2, all the while maintaining noteworthy consistency. Every driver deserves an opportunity, and so does he. But I guess we will find that out at some point. But until then, this has been Motorsport Progressive. Thanks for watching.